Hello, my name is Romal Bharatkumar Patel. I am an independent researcher in United States of America. I am a software developer full stack in Sound Thinking Inc. USA. So I am going to present my project. My project is related to governance by design and architecting compliance critical enterprise case processing system. It is called as enterprise case management system also. So I am talking about my project in detail. So there is compliance gap topic related to my project, that is most enterprise case system treated governance as an administrative layer added after the fact, overlaid on flexible tooling rather than embedded into system structure. So this levels institutions structurally exposed. So there are few points which is part of compliance gap, that is procedural gaps. So there are many gaps between the end-to-end flows of the system. So there is workflow permit, unauthorized state transition, undetected by runtime control. So there are many units work in this system. So we need to give the permission to access the particular unit or module to the authorized person and officers. So that is procedural gaps. And that another one is permission sprawl, inconsistent access control, allow inappropriate authority escalation across roles. So there are different level of roles, including one is higher level like officer and above, sergeant and above. So this kind of different roles. So there are certain inconsistency, so that inconsistency access control that we need to control through the permission sprawl. So that is the second point. Third one is incomplete audit trail. So fragmented logs fail regularly inspection and cannot support judicial review. So certain application which is not support judicial review, so that also a compliance gap. So that also we cover through our enterprise management system. And certain modules which fails to fragments log, and so that is part of regularity in the governance. So that also we covered. Fourth one is unreliable decision records. Decision integrity cannot be proven across distributed or failure prone environments. So different type of decisions done by the officer, sergeant and command level. So that unreliable decision records, that also compliance gap. So this kind of compliance gap which part of administrative layer added after the fact. So these all compliance gap we cover through our enterprise case system. So to improve the governance flow and end-to-end architecture. So next one is a new architectural premises. So we implement the new architect premises in our enterprise system. So compliance must be a system invariant, structurally enforced across very case, role, transition and failure scenarios, not a supervisory function dependent on human oversight or retrospective audition. So there are structure, not supervisory, Compliance belongs in permissions, workflow rules, and validation logic. So the system prevent non-compliance action by design. So there are n number of modules available in our system. So that is part of architecture premise, and each premise belongs to different permission and workflow rules. So we need to set the rules, we need to give the permission to particular modules or particular units, and there are certain validation logic that also we need to predefine, so that particular permission given by particular units. And what structural compliance requires? So it requires invariant rules, explicit authorization, boundaries, complete decision records, and failure handling that preserve governance. So this kind of compliance we cover. So there are invariant rules. So there are multiple rules that which we need to predefine for the different units. Explicit authorization, boundaries. So there are certain boundaries which we need to define for the units. Complete decision records. So there are review records which we need to save for audit purpose, like review approved or reject by particular person or units for the case, and the failure handling that preserve governance. So if there is any error or exception occurred, that kind of failure we need to handle to preserve governance compliance. So next one is 4 architectural pillars. The framework is grounded in institutional theory, secure systems engineering, and distributed systems research. 4 pillars collectively establish structural compliance. So there are deterministic lifestyle, hierarchical authorization, immutable audit, architecture, distributed reliability. So each pillar addresses a distinct dimension of governance failure. Together they constitute a unified compliance by design architects applicable across regulated domains. So this kind of pillars which covers all the parts of implementation of our governance system. So I'm talking about pillar 1, determination, lifecycle enforcement. So case progression is governance by finite state machine modeling. It's called FSM. Restricting transitions to those explicitly authorized by producers' rules. No case may advance outside defined pathway. What it means in practice: each case follow a defined state and only allow rules-based authorized transactions. So in our system there are multiple, as I say, there are multiple modules, and each modules accessible by the particular authorized person or units. So that kind of rule base we need to define in our life cycle. That is part of this determination life cycle enforcement pillar. Second is required guarantees. The model must ensure valid progression, reject invalid transition, and preserve complete auditability. So there are valid progression, reject invalid transition. So there are multiple transitions which are not the valid. So that transition we need to prevent. So for that we have the rule set for this required guarantees and preserve complete auditability. So in the end of the certain time period we have audit by the governance, so we need to give the report, quarterly report or yearly report related to progress or transition, so that also we can handle through this system, which is part of required guarantees determination life cycle enforcement. Then define procedural stages. Every case traverses a control sequence. Each stage boundaries is a system enforced gate, not a convince reliant on operators' disciplines. So there are submission, intake review, investigation, adjudication, decision, appeal, closure. So unauthorized transition include state reversal, skip and concurrent conflicting state are rejected at the architecture level, not the application layer. So pillar 2, hierarchical authorization enforcement. So there are role-based access control is extended with created model that mirror institutional authority architectures. Hierarchy access rights are structural, aligned to organizational roles, not manually configured per user. Permission boundaries enforced at the architectural layer. Privilege escalation structurally prevented, not morally monitored. Authority delegation governance by defined relationship. Reduce both inside risk and configuration drifted over time. Immutable audit architecture. So audit integrity is achieved through cryptography hash chaining, applied to append only event logs producing tampered evidence, records that withstand regularity, insection, and jurisdictional structure. Actor identity, every action is bound to a verified identity by including rule context and authorized level at time of action. Synchronized timestamp, so each timestamp should be synchronized as per the local time zone. State change record, each case state transition is logged with its prior and posterior state transition trigger and authorized credential. Integrity proof, hash chain log entries enable cryptography proof of completeness and non-repudiations for any audit period. Distributed reliability, governance consistency must hold across multi-node infrastructures, include during network partition and partial system failure, network partitions. When node lose communication, the system must prevent policy drift. So there are multiple nodes. So one node or server box fail, then automatically switch to other server boxes. So there should not be the communication gap or communication loss. Node failure, crash and restart must not break auditability or consistency. As I said, there are multiple server box, so multiple nodes. One node is failed, then automatically switch to another nodes and keep continue the transactions. Split brain risk, strong conscience control stop multiple nodes from acting as authoritative. Why traditional approach fail? Local cache and eventual consistency are too weak for defensible governance. Fault tolerance, governance consistency. So, two mechanisms enforce governance under distributed failure condition. Casual event ordering ensure actions across distributed nodes are sequenced correctly, preventing out of order state transitions that would corrupt procedural records. Fault tolerant state replication ensure governance state is preserved and consist even when individual nodes become unavailable or partitions. Partitions or degraded nodes cannot intuitively advance case state. Compliance cannot be bypassed by infrastructure failure. Governance invariance defined. The four pillars collectively establish a single architectural property. Governance invariance, the structure guarantee that procedures rules are enforced across all operational states without exception. Determination lifecycle, only authorized transition permits. Distributed reliability, consistency under failure. Hierarchy authorization, access alliance to institutional authority. Immutable audit, cryptographically verified records. Applicable domains. So there are multiple domains which are applicable for this system. So the architecture is a domain agnostic across any accountability intensive environment where compliance cannot rely solely on human supervisor. Public sector educations, licensing, appeal, enforcement, and regulatory decision making where procedure integrity carry legal weight. Financial service compliance, transition review, section screening, regulatory reporting, and internal control subject to external audit. Investigative case management, law enforcement and intelligent workflow, required chain of custody, integrity and legacy defines documents. Why structural enforcement matters? The limitation of supervisory compliance. So, compliance model that depends on human oversight or after the fact auditing are inherently brittle. They fail under operational pressure and high case volume, staff turnover and inconsistent procedure adherence, distributed system failure that create undetected diversions, adversation, internal actors exploiting configuration gaps. So these are the certain scenario where limitation of supervisory compliance. Next is structural alternative. When compliance is a system invariance, governance hold regardless of operator behaviors, infrastructure state, or failure scenario. The system cannot be placed in a non-compliant state, not thought error, not thought neglected, not thought deliberate circumstances. Governance by design. Key takeaway: embed compliance structurally, treat governance as a system invariant, not a supervisory layer or post hoc audit function. Enforce at every boundaries. Life cycle, transition, access decision, audit records, and distributed state must each be architectural constraints designed for failure, not just steady state. Governance consistency must held during partitions, degraded nodes, and failure scenarios, not only under normal operations. So these are the different part of my enterprise case management system, which is part of governance. So thank you very much for the listening my related to my project. Thank you very much. Bye.